use normally the mid-month, that is 15th, and the month. So for our case, we want to only use the year to increase our scoring also. With all that, I think we'll leave you to Muthoka to tell us more about the linkage. Thank you.
So thank you, Koske, for that session. I think the value of Koske's presentation will come after we go through Dr. Muthoka's presentation and the partner presentations. So please just keep it at the back of your mind. So Dr. Muthoka will take us through the next session. Dr. Muthoka, if you're online, please unmute so that we can go to the next session. I will encourage participants, if you have questions, type it in the chat box. You will notice that you have been muted by the host. So please just type in the chat box as we go through the presentations. We will be responding to them and also taking breaks in between to do the same. So Dr. Muthoka, please take it from here.
Thank you, Dr. Jacob. I hope I'm audible enough. So my brief presentation is just about uptake and linkage. And I will also touch on reporting rates so that we interpret the uptake and linkage on the background of that. So straight into the content in the next slide. So we know the importance of test and start, and I will not belabor why we need to achieve the case detection, because the 95 targets highly depend on whether we are able to detect, but also if we are able to link. Now, you mostly receive on a biweekly basis some analysis on linkage, and it's good to clarify. When you're using an EMR or eHTS, we usually look at linkage as a documented CCC number in the linkage form. And going through Koske's presentation, you have seen that if you're able to upload the PKVs, we could be able to triangulate linkage if we get a matching CCC number from HTS to CCC using the PKV. But primarily, we usually use a documented linkage form as evidence that linkage has been done. And this is usually akin to when you're using paper-based tools. The moment you link a client, you usually document at the back of MOH 362 that this client has been linked or not. Without that documentation, then there is no way of someone external knowing whether someone has been linked or not. So for the purpose of this presentation, we looked at patients who were tested positive from 1st of July 2019 to 30th of April 2020. So again, we usually make this presentation based on the distribution of EMRs. So the next presentation just shows, as of yesterday, our SECA team is able to clarify that the existing eHTS applications on the ground, and these are the ones that we would expect them to submit reports. Now, we know this number is mobile because they usually increase and reduce over time. So like in April, we were expecting reports from 200 of these EMRs are mostly concentrated in neighboring counties, but I would also want to take special cognizance to Lower Eastern, as you see in the next presentation, that there's still a significant number of EMRs. So, and coincidentally, you can see most of the eHTS is in CHS Naishi. There's also KCCB CAP and CHS Shinda and others, as you can see from this slide. And I'm sure you've seen this from previous slides that we usually share with you. Moving on, we also shared the reporting, and just for purposes of definition, usually the NASCOP team expects every partner with either eHTS or EMR for care and treatment to submit a report at least once every month. And we usually use the numerator for both county and partner as the number of EMRs or facilities that are submitted a report, and the denominator we usually use as the number of reports that we would expect. So in this case, what I just showed you in the previous slide. The next slide I just want to show the overall trends of reporting. You can see from, even though the denominator is variable over time, the overall reporting has generally improved, and especially the last 2 months, from a low of 1% to a high of 57%. And even though this progress is very commendable, we would want to see a reporting rate that is more than 80-90%, just in line with the 90-90-90, so that we are able to get more up-to-date data that reflects what we have in the country. The reporting rates differs per county. Some counties do quite well and consistently. Some of these are like Busia, Embu, Kirinyaga, but there are some other places where we can be able to use a bit of support. Some are very near Nairobi, like Kiambu, Nyandarua, and the like, that we can be able to use to improve. Again, the performance is also variable by partner. So you look at some partners like eHTS site supported by HF, Columbia Stars, LVCT Steps. All the reports that we expected to receive in April were actually submitted to the warehouse. And others, like you can see in your extreme right, a lot can be done to improve on the timeliness of reporting. Moving on, there's some eHTS sites that are indicated as active, but have not submitted a single report to the warehouse. And just put them out there so that you know the distribution by county. And after this meeting, you can be able to share this distribution by county, and also in the next slide by partner, so that you're able to know maybe, and also clarify whether these are your sites, and if you can be able to support them to be able to submit a eHTS report if the eHTS are in use. Moving on, when you look at PKV reporting, Koske just gave the highlight of how important it is to have PKVs, because you can be able to triangulate. So looking still at the same reporting month of April, we had an overall reporting of 57% of PKVs. If this can improve, we could be able to use to either triangulate and also confirm intra-facility and inter-facility linkage. And you can see how the performance differs from county to county. And in the next slide, you'll see how this performance differs from partner to partner. So the enhancements that Koske just talked about will help improve this, and hopefully we can be able to see better performance from across all partners. And also kudos to the ones who are doing 100% or over 80%. Now, specific with that background, now we can go to data for that reporting period that I was talking about. And these are the number of patients that are tested. And here I just wanted to compare the volumes, the data volumes. So during that period, we had over 400,000 people who were tested. When we look at the counties in the extreme right, and also the yield or positivity, you'll see that it reflects more of what you would see on the ground when it comes to actual number of people tested, and also the positivity. Some of the counties you see on the extreme left will be able to demonstrate that even though the yield may be very high, the utility is very low, and promoting this maybe probably reflect a bit more of what is usually the reality in terms of use. The same slide is repeated next, looking at partners. The highest volume from CHS Shinda and UMB, also CHS Naishi, based on the number of people tested over that period. And some other counties on in the middle and also on the left, we can do much more in terms of utility of the app. So some of the partners, and notable, especially in the last 3 months, like CHS Naishi, we've been able to note how well the spread and the utility of the app is, and good use. And we'll be asking them maybe to share their experiences on this. So I hope we can be able to learn a thing or two about the scale up. Next. So now we look at linkage, which is the second important part. And these are the trends in linkage. And this linkage is based on both a documented linkage form, but also what we are able to triangulate from PKVs of patients from HTS and CCC. And even though we have a positive trend in the in the linkage, we take note that this is below the programmatic experience of about 90% that we usually see from program level data. For program level data. And when you look at the distribution, this is just the number of positives. And again, this is just a reflection of the utility of the app or data volumes. So from 17,000 patients, you can see where again, the high burden counties and also notable with the lower eastern. Then again, the same distribution by partner in the next slide. Just showing the partners that have high utility, and the spread is shown in this particular slide. So you can be able to see where your organization lies in this long list of partners and their contribution. So with this as a denominator, we now look at the proportion of patients that have a documented linkage form. So out of the 17,000, only about 45% would meet the standard definition of linkage or confirmed linkage. And the spread is shown in this slide. So you can see some partners, some counties like Nyandarua being the highest, followed by the likes of Nyamira. But you can also compare the number of patients that you've seen before. Like Nyandarua had, I think, about 10 patients. Then you look at counties like Siaya that has thousands, and the utility is about 56%. And some of the partners and counties that are doing well, we have asked them to share the experiences so that we can learn from them. And the performance is variable. So some counties are still at 0, meaning none of the forms is actually documented. And we can move to the next one to just look at the partners distribution in terms of linkage in the next slide. And again, some systems like Eastern Binary in Nairobi can see the utility actually reflects the actual programmatic linkage based on number of patients tested and positive and the number that is linked. And this is the standard that we would want to achieve across all partners. So the purpose of this meeting is to go back to the objective, is to be able to share the experience from some of these partners who have similar systems and similar structures, look at the approaches, the challenges they have faced, and how they have been able to achieve percentages above 70, 60, while others are still at 0, and how we can be able to improve this. So this is just based on a linkage form only. If we were able to move to the next slide and look at the combination of PKV and the linkage, you notice that we were able to buy a 2% increment in just accounting for linkage. Now, the potential of use of technology to leverage on improving linkage is understated here because the number of partners and facilities uploading linkage information or PKV information is very low. And that's why the number is it's only 2% for where the documented linkage form is missing. But it just demonstrates that there is potential across. The warehouse has many other benefits, and I think if you've been able to access, you can be able to see, especially from the dashboards that are circulated there, and also some of the reports and analyst outputs that we're able to share with you. And some of these presentations are important to be able to either support clinical decision support or public health decision support. And you can be able to access these bulletins that we routinely share, including what I've just presented here, from the warehouse on the resources page. So if you move to the next slide, just a demonstration of how you can be able to access the HTS data on the national NASCOP website. You can be able to get to both get the HTS reporting rates and also service performance from HTS uptake and linkage as shown here. And you can be able to drill down to either partner, county, sub-county, or facilities, and be able to compare what you have on the ground with what you have on the in the warehouse, just to be able to translate and see whether it's what you expect to see. So in conclusion, I think based on those slides, you can see over time there's a bit of improvement in reporting. We can still do more. We have also seen in terms of volume of uptake of use of the eHTS differs from partner to partner and county to county. We can be able to improve this. And in the exception of Eastern Binary, we can see that in most places, we can have a lower than what the linkage rates would be when it comes to performance. So for these two areas, we really need to have strategies to either document the linkage if it is done, or to improve linkage, and also to improve reporting. So I'll stop there and usher in the next presenter. Thank you.
Hello, Jacob.
Yes, Ahmed.
Hello, Jacob.
I can hear you. Go ahead.
How are you, Jacob and team and everyone? We are sorry. I just want to register our apologies. We were in another meeting just before this meeting, and while making an attempt to transition to this meeting, we've been told the Zoom call was full and we could not be able to come in. But finally, we have managed. So the HTS team from NASCOP is on board. That's what I wanted to say. Otherwise, I would like to thank everyone for showing interest and taking part in this meeting, where Palladium, who are collaborating with us in terms of eHTS scale up in the country, is giving us a report on the performance of HTS. So thank you so much, Jacob. I just wanted to register our apologies and let you know that we are on board.
Okay. Yeah, I think the team has heard. Thanks so much for that. I want us to move to the next. I'll request that the next presentation is put up. I think this should be FACES. So please, Mwariri, just put up the presentation so that the FACES team can just take us through the slides. As she does that, the next presenter can just introduce themselves so that we proceed with that. There are a few comments just comments I want to make about the presentation that has been done. So this meeting is trying to look at the volumes of patients who are being tested and documented through eHTS. So certain things that are important for us would be, what proportion of clients in a partner's or a county is being done through eHTS. How many positives or what percentage of positives in the partner's program is being identified at eHTS? Because it's important, because we are looking at individual level data on eHTS, and the more numbers we have, the more information we have, and then just looking at linkage at individual level. I think that was a very important focus of this meeting, and the partner presentations will focus on different aspects of this. Some partners will focus on reporting rates, how they have managed to achieve higher reporting rates, like FACES is going to do today. And reporting rates is important because it's the first part of completeness of data on eHTS from the sites. And then, the other question that we ask from the presentation that has just been done, for sites that have never reported to the National Data Warehouse, are they active? Are they actually eHTS sites to start with? Because once we are able to think about these presentations in that light, then we can be able to have a fruitful discussion at the end of the sessions. So FACES team, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Jacob, for that. We are happy. This is Edwin from FACES. We are happy to share our presentation. Our HTS technical lead, Carol Dande, will do the presentation, and then our team from FACES will be on hand to respond to any questions that may be forthcoming from the presentation that will be done. So Carol, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mulwa. I'll briefly take you through the eHTS National Data Warehouse upload as a best practice for our program. We'll briefly touch on eHTS data reporting and upload processes, training, mentorship, and support we're giving to our providers, data analysis, trends, challenges and mitigations, lessons learned, and next steps. So as a program, we are implementing eHTS in 22 sites. 3 of the sites are paperless, meaning they're using only Mozilla application to enter data. 19 sites are doing hybrid system, meaning they're using both Mozilla app and the paper. In terms of eHTS distribution sites, we have Kisumu East to West Central, the 5 sites, Nyando 6 sites, Moroni 7 sites, Nyakach 4 sites. So in terms of data flow from the site level, the HTS counselor will enter their data in using the Mozilla application. Data is then synced to the eHTS central server. Then from the eHTS central server, using the DOPI tool, we are able to upload our data to the national data warehouse. So we have 20 of our sites which are having their data in one location, that is the eHTS central server. And then we have 2 standalone sites which are paperless, and the HTS providers enter data into using the Mozilla application to the local child server. Then from the local child server, our team has been trained. They're able to upload the data from the local child server at site level direct to the national data warehouse. So the main advantage that we have as a program is that majority of our sites, that is 20 out of 22 sites, are having their data in one location. So it is easier to be able to use the DOPI tool to upload the data at once to the national data warehouse. That is giving us a reporting rate of 91%. So the 2 sites, standalone sites that I've just mentioned, will start uploading their data this month, and therefore we'll have 100% data reporting rate. Another advantage that we have with the system is that the system is able to detect duplicate records, and therefore we have deployed duplicate merging SOP to all our sites, and have trained our providers at site level to be able to detect the duplicates and use the SOP to merge the records so that we have all the records in the system. You realize when there's a duplicate, then the data will not enter into the central server. So our providers, technical teams are able to detect the duplicates, merge using the merging SOP, and then we get all our data into the server.
I think these meetings have become too much.
So in terms of training, mentorship, and support to providers, we have trained all the counselors who are working in the
that meeting, because sites. I think they were sent the link. It's supposed to be your team for prevention.
Hello, I don't know if we can have somebody.
Prevention was a bigger team, but now I'm seeing it has been divided.
Hello, Mary, do you want to mute your mic?
And a smaller one for prep.
Who
so
is
me,
the
I
host?
don't understand.
Who's the host? She can't even be muted. Mugambi.
Okay, I will.
Karo, just hold on.
Okay, thank you.
I have muted her. Let's go on.
Thank you.
I have muted her. We can go on.
Okay, so just to highlight on the training, mentorship, and support to the providers, we've trained all our HTS providers at site level on eHTS. We also trained the data clerks at site level on the DOPI tool, and therefore they're able to do uploads directly to the national data warehouse every month. We have also sensitized sub-county and county health management teams on eHTS. And we have HTS officers and ICT-MR stationed in each sub-county, and therefore they are able to offer regular support and mentorship to our providers. We also have a WhatsApp group for all the eHTS sites and providers. Therefore, from the platform, we are able to track the providers who are entering data using an eHTS data tracker, and also the providers are able to just raise some of the challenges they are facing at site level and get proper support. At program level, we are doing monitoring on a weekly basis to identify gaps and provide support and intervention. And on a monthly basis, we are doing data quality checks on eHTS data entries. So, so far as a program, since implementation of eHTS, we have uploaded a total of 272,416 records to the national data warehouse, and this is now distributed per site, and the sites are also based on the volume. So you can see sites with higher numbers, higher records, high volume sites, then also compared to the mid volume and the lower volume sites. As a program, when we started implementing eHTS, we started with 30 sites, but we downgraded to 22 sites. These are the total number of sites that is contributing to 80% of the new positives to the program. And therefore, as a program, we feel like those are the sites that we gave first priority to ensure that the application is implemented. So from this data, from October 2019 to April 2020, we uploaded a total of 9,922 records to the National Data Warehouse. And again, this is also distributed per site, and site size is dependent on the volume. So looking at the upload trends, we have our highest record upload done in January, and our lowest done in December and April. And again, the uploads of data is based on the number of tests done per facility. And of course, number of tests done is also dependent on the workload. So the higher the workload, the higher the number of tests and the number of records being uploaded to the National Data Warehouse. So some of the challenges that we've encountered as we are implementing eHTS, number one is internet connectivity and connectivity between service delivery points, especially sites which are high volume sites which are having dispersed service delivery points. So what we've done as a program to mitigate that is to deploy wireless routers in the affected sites to boost connectivity between service delivery points. We also encountered HRH challenges, especially changes at the end of the year during transition. So what we are doing as a program to mitigate that is to improve on HRH transition and also ensure that providers are refreshed on eHTS for better utility. We've also encountered multiple registrations due to internet lag times. This results into duplicate records that needs merging. So what we've done is we've come up with a duplicate merging SOP, which we have deployed in all our sites. We also trained our providers at site level on how to detect the duplicate records and merge them into one so that they have that data into the system. We've also trained our HTS officers and ICT-MR officers on ensuring that they are able to detect these duplicates, merge, and have all our data into the system. Another challenge that we've encountered is in power outages in some sites. So what we've done is to support the sites with generators and power backup. And also the last challenge is that we've noted that there are a number of changes being made on the WAPI data dictionary, and this is not being proactively communicated to allow us do queries, and therefore it's affecting upload consistencies. So we're just requesting Palladium to proactively notify us on changes to the system to allow us update queries in a timely fashion. So some of the lessons that we've learned as we are doing implementing eHTS, number one, stable internet connectivity is required for us to optimize the use of the system. Then coordinated HRH changes and robust OJT mechanism is also crucial for continuity and sustainability. Then implementation, monitoring, and supervision systems also needs to be assured. Sub-county and county health management teams oversight is essential. And lastly, in-house ICT support is also crucial in managing the system glitches. So the next step for our program is to deploy wireless routers to boost local area network stability in the 11 sites, scale up electronic HTS eligibility screening module in all eHTS sites. We also plan to deploy eHTS EPNS module in all eHTS sites, and then transition to Kenya EMR version of eHTS in the 11 sites in order to have electronic spectrum of service delivery and data capture from HIV testing eligibility to ART. And this is also in line with the PEPFAR guidance on transitioning EMR to Kenya EMR. We acknowledge patients who are offering services to, accessing services to our sites, sub-county and county HMT members, HTS providers offering the services, FACES technical team for their support, Polonium Group, Muzima developers, and lastly, CDC for their regular support. Thank you.
Yes, so thanks so much, the team from FACES. I would suggest that we go through, that the team from FACES takes note of questions which have come in the chat. There are quite a bit of them, so that we just prepare and respond at the end of the session. So I would request that we just go through the next presentation so that we kind of save time and the questions for the last. So please, FACES team, take note of the questions. And the participants, please just record your questions so that at the end of the presentation, you can take them. You can also type them in the chat so that the presenters take note and respond to each of them at the end of the chat. So the next presentation, please, from Afya Ziwani.
Hello, good morning, everyone. So my name is John Macharia, the Health Informatics Officer for Afya Ziwani. I'll take you through our data upload for the National Warehouse. We also have our other team from Afya Ziwani on the call, so they will assist me where questions come. So currently we support 55 EMR sites in Nyamira and Kisumu counties. We have 39 in Nyamira and 16 in Kisumu. Of the 55 sites, we have 27 eHTS sites. We have 24 in Nyamira and 3 in Kisumu. The 3 in Kisumu are basically new sites which should submit data starting next month. So the first thing we did was site preparation for eHTS, where of course we start with infrastructure, where we did the wireless routers, where we installed a power backup. You'll notice that for many sites that take the distributed system, where we have databases per site, power is one of the major issues that cause issues in EMR. So we had some power backups installed in 24 of our sites. Then, of course, give tablets to HTS because that is what they use for data capture. After, of course, preparing the sites with the infrastructure, we capacity build, where we trained the counselors, plus the county and sub-county management teams on the tools to use. And we sensitize the facilities to submit data on the 5th of every month so that we can be able to track who is submitting and who is not. Next slide, please. So this is the kind of setup we have in our eHTS sites. I will take keen note to the battery, the power backup. That is one of the main things that has made the system stabilize, because I would say before we had the power backups, we used to get calls each and every other week that the system has issues because there was a power fluctuation. But after we installed the power backups, I think those calls have basically disappeared. The system is now stable, and the users are more happy with now using the system because it never disturbs them a lot. I think the rest are straightforward. The battery, of course, powers up the EMR server and the wireless network in the entire facility. And this backup has a capability to take a facility for a whole week without power. So they are good batteries to have. So now that we have everything set up at the facility, so the best practice is we make sure that all sites submit data at facility level. So we have of our 27 sites, 20 sites we've had the capability to install everything at facility level. That is, we have given them an internet connection, so they are able to submit data directly from facility level at the end of every month. Then, of course, before submission of data, we do a comparison between the electronic and manual HTS records. And for that, we have, of course, mandated a champion in every facility of the 20 sites that does that before they submit the data warehouse. Then, of course, there's continuous sensitization on the data upload process. There's, of course, continuous ICT support where challenges are faced. Yeah, basically, next slide, please. So on this slide, you can be able to see the trends. So as you can see, from October to around February, it has been up and down. This is the time where basically we were installing the power backups in facilities and we were doing OJTs at facility level, basically to train our users on how to use the eHTS, but we have not done a formal training on eHTS yet. So if you can see February, we have 54%, February 13th and 14th, so that is when we did a formal training to all the HTS counselors and the sub-county and county health management teams on how to use eHTS and sensitize them. And I think that is why we can be able to see an increase in March and of course in April on the reporting rates, because I think the sensitization and bringing, of course, the county on board really did help us a lot in the eHTS uptake at facility level. Yes, so if you go to the challenges, of course, we are, okay, in places like Namibia, we have some sites which are a bit remote, in remote areas, where power is an issue, internet, of course, is an issue. Where internet, of course, we are using Safaricom.
Yes, boss.
So that is some of the issues we are having with connectivity. Erratic power supply, as I had mentioned earlier, in remote sites, we have very frequent power outages, and installing a power backup in a facility is a key thing if you want EMR to work in those facilities. So I would say the installation of the power backups was a main thing for us. And at times, of course, when we want to submit data to the data warehouse, we find sometimes the data warehouse is down. So that was okay, but not often, but some of the challenges we face at facility level. Lessons learned, I would say involvement of all relevant parties like we did in February, where we brought everyone on board. That is the county management team, the providers at facility, both program and county staff. We trained them, and having them know what we are doing, have a common goal. That is one of the main things that have improved on our reporting rates. Installation of power backup, as I had said earlier, also very key for eHTS usage and submission of data. So for the next steps, I would say we want basically to increase our eHTS sites and of course increase on the DQS done to improve the data quality. I think in a snapshot, that is what I'd have to say on the what you have done to increase our data uploads. Thank you.
So I think Dr. Kimanga will take over from here to moderate this session. Thank you.
Jacobo, you are doing so well. This is okay, Sawa. Good morning, everyone. Now the next presentation, we are going to hear from CHS Naishi, and they'll really be telling us about how they've been using eHTS to document their HIV testing within their facilities. So Naishi, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miriam Mwangi. I'll be taking you through the CHS presentation. You can hear me?
Okay. We are on mute, but yes, we can hear you.
All right. So CHS Naishi supports care and treatment HTS and PMTCT across 3 counties, Machakos, Makueni, and Kitui. The project supports 216 facilities that offer HTS services, with 58 of these facilities using EMR, and the choice of EMR we've been using is IQ Care for all these sites. 34 of these facilities are currently implementing POC. When it comes to the facilities that are implementing eHTS, Machakos, we have 67 sites. That is 36% of them are implementing eHTS out of the 67 sites. Makueni, 27%, and Kitui, 19%. Facilities using EMR for data capture and reporting per county, you have 24 in Machakos, 18 in Makueni, and 16 in Kitui. Out of these 58 facilities, 40 facilities, that is 71% of them, are currently reporting in the National Data Warehouse as at April 2020. And 34% of these sites are actually using Afya Mobile to implement eHTS. What informed the choice of these facilities was their HTS positive contribution in a period of 1 year, that is October 2018 to September 2019. where 79% in Machakos of the sites contributed to the HTS positive contribution in the overall HTS data, 72% in Makueni and 67% in Kitui. The focus was in the high volume facilities that give us results as far as HTS is concerned, as well as we also were riding on the existing infrastructure done while implementing care and treatment for EMR in the same facilities. And as well, these facilities have very stable power supply. In the next slide, we'll be outlining the strategies that we employed before and some of which we are still currently employing while implementing eHTS. We started by creating a technical working group, which was created in 2017 when we started implementing EMR actively using IQ Care. And the same TWG group was given the mandate for eHTS and PMTCT implementation as well. So we started with planning meetings to discuss proposed facilities to implement eHTS in the 3 counties, where we engaged the CHS team and the county managers at the county level. The mandate of this meeting was to discuss the proposed facilities that we had chosen, the 58 facilities, and as well institute a mechanism of assessing how prepared they were to take up the services in terms of infrastructure, the personnel, and as well the knowledge gap. We forged a collaborative with the county teams to initiate HTS services and try to get the buy-in for these particular facilities in the different counties and sub-counties, and instituted trainings thereafter. The first one was for the TOT training for the entire CHS program team to act as the people spearheading the trainings in the counties and the sub-counties. This was led by the Palladium group, and it happened in the various CHS offices. Then from there on, we had the MOH staff, eHTS champions identified and trained. And they were trained with the CHS TOTs that had already been trained by the Palladium group. And we were focusing on the HTS counselors, the clinicians, the HRIOs, and the nurses, at least 2 personnel per facility, and conducted a training per county. And all these trainings were facility-based. We picked a high-volume facility in the 3 counties and used it to conduct the trainings. And then from there on, we conducted facility-based sensitization meetings and OJTs, led by the CHS TOTs and the MOH champions in each facility for the 58 facilities identified for implementation. Then we started HTS data capture in IQK HTS module, having the HTS counselors and the clinical officers who are doing the confirmatory tests enter the data, while at the same time updating the HTS registers so that they could familiarize better with the system over time. And then regular DQAs on a daily basis and on a weekly basis were performed with the help of the HRIOs to determine at least the concordancy between the 2, the register system and the EMR data that was being keyed in on a daily basis. Then from there, we conducted several facility meetings in the MDT meetings, and we documented the progress of each facilities spearheaded by the HRIOs and the record staff and the M&E teams on the ground. Then if a facility achieved a concordancy reporting of over 95%, that was a site that was now commissioned to transition to full POC, and we dropped the manual registers in these facilities. Then we've been having monthly uploads of the data to the National Data Warehouse in supported by the M&E team and the HRIOs on the ground. At least by the 10th of every month, we've been able to support these facilities to upload their data. Then again, internally as a program, we've been able to share our reports and discuss facility by facility every month by the 15th, immediately after the uploads to the National Data Warehouse. We agreed on a facility-based model that focuses more on the HTS data flow in a facility, starting from the registration desk, conducting HTS eligibility screening, and routing a client for testing if they're eligible, And then after the confirmatory testing of the client is referred for enrollment to the specific service delivery point, either at the CCC or the PMTCT. This is mainly done at the CCC registration by the records desk. And then they are referred to either the PMTCT or the CCC, depending on the client type and for the different services and incision of ARVs. Then all these patients are again exited through the pharmacy. Our reporting rates over time in a time series from May 2019 to April 2020, the first line showcases the care and treatment reporting over time, starting at 36% from May 2019, currently at 88% as at April 2020. But of interest is the eHTS, that we started at 8%, and we are currently at 73% as at April 2020. And the strategies that we've been employing over time has helped us to be able to improve the reporting rates from 8% to the current 73%. So currently, this is the HTS positive data that we've been reporting through eHTS in comparison with the overall reported HTS positive in the last quarter and the eHTS sites HTS positive contribution. As at January, we were at 52% with the HTS sites, February 49%, and March 63%, and currently at 67%. We are currently aiming at having 80% of the reported eHTS data coming from EMR facilities, which we envision as a program will help us to translate savings in resources such as cost incurred from printing the registers. So over time, we have had several lessons learned as we have implemented the eHTS POCs, especially in the POC facilities. And one of them was we have learned to allow the healthcare workers to familiarize with the system by giving them time to be able to familiarize with the system by one, having a standalone machine in the using the HTS module in IQ Care in a facility with a so that they can practice with the dummy data, and it is not data that actually goes to the overall server. The other one was implementing the physical registers together with the system while they see patients for a period of time until we achieve a 95% data concordancy. And we realized this helped the healthcare workers, one, to master the system flow of the HTS module in the EMR, starting from the registration, the universal registration, testing, family testing, tracing, linkage, and referral services, as well as help them understand the indicators in the system while comparing the same from the manual registers. Then again, learn to validate their data on a daily basis and be able to generate reports, and especially this helped with the last LEAP reports that we were doing on a weekly basis. Then we've realized that we can be able to implement eHTS virtually anywhere where there's a testing point. Why? Because we can leverage on technology, especially using mobile HTS, Afia Mobile, because it is portable, especially in places where we have testing points in the tents or in HTS rooms which are not networked. Then again, we have learned to forge collaboratives with the county and facility to engage in seamless transitions from the manual to the system, so that they can also help us and support us where we have power outages, where we have resources are not enough in terms of staffing, and also in trainings and sensitizations, and also availing the HTS rooms that we may be requesting. Then again, we have been able to cost share our infrastructure needs with the facilities. For example, they would help us to cater for the networking costs as we buy the materials they need to network some of these rooms. Then again, we've been able to collaborate in terms of reporting, support supervision, data review meetings, and actually hosting facility-based CMEs specific for eHTS to encourage ownership and uptake at these facilities in support with the county teams. Then we also realized when we talk about the advantages eHTS is going to give to the healthcare workers, it enabled us to get a buy-in from the healthcare workers, especially the HTS counselors. And some of these advantages that we keep on fronting to them was one, improve the HTS documentation with the provider, that is updating the system as they review the client, because the system has a user-friendly interface that offers a drag and drop capability. Then the system will allow multi-user access in the facility, that is a division of labor, while HTS counselors is testing the patient. And another one is the same patient can be accessed by the HRIO, again for registration, by the clinician for clinical services and for initiation to ART, and maybe even by another counselor for confirmatory testing. Then we have also realized and fronted to them that we have improved HTS data accuracy across all the HTS registers, especially linkage and PNS registers where we are having problems in data documentation. And also, we have enabled them to make data-driven decisions using HTS data, especially for the in charges in resource allocations. And again, we've had minimal disruptions in when they see patients due to lack of paper registers. And again, we find this convenient and saving in terms of cost of implementation. So we've also encountered some opportunities for improvement. So more so as more of challenges we have been experiencing. One of them is constant reallocation of HTS rooms in the facilities where we have already networked and services have already commenced. And after some time, the HTS staff get reallocated to another room that is not yet networked. Power outages, especially in rural Kitui facilities that disrupt real-time EMR update, necessitating at times to have retrospective data entry done. Then insecurity in some HTS rooms where eHTS equipment are placed. And we have been able to negotiate with some of the facility in charges to help us with reinforcing the doors and the windows for these particular rooms. So as a way forward, we envision to review all the access points for wireless connectivity in service provision areas to avoid duplicate registrations in facilities, especially using Afya Mobile. Then we will enforce EMR asset tracking at the facility and county level to ensure that we do not get losses when assets are moved from one facility to the other. Then continue with the continuous mentorship and OJT at the facilities to empower the healthcare workers, especially the HTS counselors, in correcting their own data at the data entry level, validating to ensure quality reporting, and ensuring that you have up-to-date documentation of HTS data. Then incorporating HTS data reviews in the county in charges meetings. This is during the time they bring their reports to the county SHRIOs. And as well promoting data demand use for the county and sub-county management teams to be able to use and view their data. And for this we'll be holding several sensitization meetings for them to be able to use the data that is projected in the National Data Warehouse. And as well, we are envisioning to migrate to Kenya EMR. Currently, we are using IQ Care as a project. And we're actually grateful for the collaboration we've experienced with the county and sub-county teams in Machakos, Makueni, and Kitui counties, the CHS program teams, the facility-based staffs, and the Palladium group teams that we've been working with and supporting us very well. Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. Excellent presentation. And they have really shared a lot. The next one is we are now moving to the next set of best practices from the partners, and we are going to be seeing how partners have done very well at having very good linkage rates among the positives that they've identified. So we start with LVCT steps. The floor is yours.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Kennedy Uko from LVC Step. So I'll take you through the eHTS model that we have been using. So currently, LVC Step have 3 sites that are implementing eHTS out of the 11 sites. 2 sites are in Kisumu County, and then 1 site in Migori County. But we intend to integrate the eHTS in all the sites that are using the EMR. So one of the things that we have done to improve our linkages in these 3 sites that are implementing eHTS. So first of all, we did an assessment just to look at the staff capacity and also to look at the infrastructures and any other things that was very important for the implementation of eHTS. And from that, we were able to learn that not all the sites were trained efficiently on how to use the system. And the network assessment that we came up with was addressed by the ICT. And we realized that some sites were experiencing the blackout, the power blackout. And we provided all the sites with the backup, the power backups. So another thing that we considered very important from that assessment, we were able to now develop a work plan, and we are able to train these sites based on their CADA. So first of all, we started with the HTS counselors, and then from there we proceeded to training the supervisors and the technical advisors, and then we also introduced all the teams on the data warehouse analytics so that they could be able to understand how that data reaches to the national data warehouse and be able to inform programming. So from there, we have been also doing a virtual training just to capacity build the sites to be able to use the system, to be able to run these reports and use them, and also make some comparison between the lab registers and what is in the EMR. So these are the measures that we feel that for a site that are implementing HTS should be taken with the highest priority. So we had challenges of incomplete linkages form, and what we advise the providers and the clinician is that they should be able to interrogate the data and be able to run the report and get the linkages that are not, the plants that are not being linked. And from there, they were able to proceed with the linkages. And then we realized that before there were a lot of duplicates. So because of that, all the counselors were instructed to push the data for any positive plans after registration, so that this data becomes available when the client reaches the clinician room or the nurse room. The clinician is now able to proceed with other enrollment of this kind of other services instead of double enrollment. So another thing that we also did was a continuous training of these HTS providers, and these trainings was being moderated by the sites. So we were able to learn what they know from the system and where they're having challenges. So from there, we were able to train them, and now they are very confident using this system. Another thing that we also engage the supervisors together with the technical team is on how to validate the HTS report with the lab register and the EMR HTS report, so that we can be able to get a concordance between what is in the paper and what is in the EMR and what is in the lab register. And then from there, we also capacity build the sites on how to line list, to get the line list from the EMR and be able to compare this with the source document. So the benefit that we have achieved when we are using the eHTS. So I think this benefit can be crystallized. And one of the things that is coming out is a collection of quality data that we can now use for reporting and also make decisions. Another thing, we have also reduced duplication or double enrollment. And in the EMR, we have a feature that is used to merge duplicate records whenever there were duplicates records. And then the third one is I think searching of patient record has been made easier, and I think the user interface is more friendly to the EMR users. Then the system is also fast and efficient, and this makes it easier for the EMR user to fill this form within a short time. And then when it comes to information sharing, this one has also been made possible by the eHTS. So this is just a diagram just to illustrate how the flow of information is coming from the eHTS and then to the EMR. So if you look at the first diagram, we have the HTS. So the HTS counselor with the HTS with the AFIA mobile. We are using the AFIA mobile to enter the HTS data. So some sites might be using a different application apart from the AFIA mobile, but you can see the HTS provider is able to fill the clinical encounter for both negative plant and positive plants, and then be able to push this data to the EMR server. And then this data, the clinician is now able to query or to invoke a request from the server and then be able to do a retest for this client. And possibly if the client is eligible, then the clinician is able now to enroll the client to the CCC or any other services. So from this dashboard, you can be able to see that this just to demonstrate using the AFIA mobile. So the counselor will be able to go to the registry, and then from the registry, the counselor can be able to do a search on the device. If the client is available on the device, then she can be able to proceed by updating the linkages. If the client has been pushed to the server, then the HTS counselor will be able to do a remote search. Just to click on the last diagram, just to do a remote search from the server. And then from there, the HTS counselor is able to get the possible matches and maybe locate the clients she or he wanted to update. So from there, you will realize that for all positive clients, the linkages and the referral section is enabled by default. For negative, this part will not be enabled. Then again, she can be able to fill the referral section or add any tracing done to the client, and then eventually update the linkages part for this client. And then once saved, the counselors will be able to push this data to the server. So one of the challenges that we were experiencing before integrating these sites, so we had incomplete linkages form, especially the lab registers, the referral and linkages register. So with the application of this eHTS in this site, this has made it possible for us to validate this data and be able to correct this data before we submit it, and then also compare what is in this source document, and train them on how to be able to collect this data and also understand the validations logics that is in the eHTS module. So again, another challenge that we had was about capacity building. So not all sites were able to use the system and also update the linkages and the retest part. So because of this, the structured meeting that we have had since transitioning these sites to use the EMR, these sites are now able to use this system and to update the missing information that was not being updated before. So the lesson that we have learned during the implementation of the eHTS, one of them is that the data review meeting is very important for these sites, for them to be able to understand this data that is in the EMR and also to use this data. And also we realized that by developing a stock for these sites, just to track some indicators will be very important for these sites also to learn and document any challenges that they have. And from there, we can be able to advise and maybe be able to get feedback from the system. Then we realize that continuous mentorship to these sites should be structured in a way that it's addressing the challenges that they're facing, so that they can be able to overcome the challenges. And then one of the most important aspect that we realized that was very important is that by involving the technical advisors, the supervisors, and HTS counselors together with the regional directors, to introduce them on this technology that we are using was one of the very important things that help us improve our linkages. So this is just data to compare what the linkages that we have from the data warehouse from October to April 2020. So from the first site that we have, you can see they're doing 92% of their linkages. And the second site, also the same 92%, while the last site is doing 15%. So this site that is doing 15% was because of the site was not actually active when it comes to eHTS implementations, but it has been now reactivated to start using the eHTS, and I think their data will start changing very soon. So I'll proceed to the next slide. So we also talked about a situation where the clinician was able to search the query instead of registration. So we were looking at the clients who are linked at the sites versus the positive that we have. So you can see the contribution of this positive, and the overall performance is at 89%, whereby the Tivoli is having 100%. And then this slide, we are also comparing the reports versus what is in the data warehouse. So if you look at the 40% contribution, that is the plants that have been linked in this site. And then the 92%, that is now the overall linkages, that is in the national data warehouse. And you can see the reporting to the warehouse in terms of linkages is a very, very good percentage. So these are some of the activities that have been carried out in these 3 sites. So we realized that continuous training was very important, just to emphasize on some of the areas that they have not been doing well. And also what has also promoted the linkages to contributed to high linkages rate is about the same days linkages that has been prioritized by the counselors and the linkages officer. And also we have developed some other trackers to aid in getting all this information so that we can be able to just look at them and compare. So we have an online performance tracker and that we can be able to see which sites is not doing well in terms of linkages and be able to support them. And then we also have the person who has been coordinating all these linkages. So this person will be able to support sites which have got issues when it comes to linkages. And then tracking outcome updated in the linkages tracker. And then we also have the linkage data updated in real time in the EMR. So that will mark at the end of that presentation. Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we move to CHS Shinda.
I want to share my screen. I think it may be just a bit different from what you currently have.
Okay, so Mariri should stop sharing so that you can take up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope everybody can see it.
Not yet. Oh, maybe that's me.
You still cannot see?
Okay. Sure.
Even it last minute changes. It's coming.
Okay.
Make it full screen.
Okay. Okay. Can you see the full screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll take you through the CHS Shinda presentation. So our success has been the HTS program working with the health informatics. So we'll also do the presentation together. So this is just to show our eHTS and EMR support for the county. So our EMR is currently 99 sites. That is 83% of the sites we're supporting. We use two platforms, IQCare and Kenya EMR, and also that makes us use two eHTS platforms. That is M-Uzima and Afya Mobile, because M-Uzima is compatible to Kenya EMR, Afya Mobile is compatible to IQCare. So if you look at the next slide, it shows our coverage of eHTS. So when we were starting, we looked at the bulk of our HTS testing, and the bulk came from these 40 sites. And if you can see, these 40 sites were contributing to 52% of the tests that we were conducting, and also contribute to 52% of the HTS Pos that we have in the program. So it was able to, and actually these were mainly also high volume sites and some mid volumes and also some low volume sites. So it was just to show coverage of how we decided to implement. So our startup journey and to show how far we've come. So of course, first we developed a plan on how to roll out, to initiate, and even to implement. So one of the implementing partners, which was UCSF Paces, had started, they were ahead of the game. So we went to a few of their sites to see how they were implementing and learned a few lessons of the same. So one of the greatest lessons we learned was to do an early sensitization to the CHMT on eHTS implementation and also address their concerns. And of course, maybe majorly one of their greatest concerns was when they go for site supervision, how will they review records? And we were able to show that it can be printed. And at the beginning, we were doing a hybrid where we do the eHTS on the tablet and also use the registers so that we compare that all the records are on the same platforms. So after the sensitization, we got an okay from the CHMT, and now we went ahead and trained our HTS providers on eHTS. Our greatest training and concern from the providers was, of course, on embracing, because most of them were feeling I'll have to do records on paper, and again, I come to the same records. on the tablet. So we were trying to show how to embrace, and luckily there is reduction in the number of tests that is expected. So the other thing was on how to integrate eHTS in the pre-test counseling, so that one, to be able to get consent from a client, so that the client does not imagine that now you're using the tablet, maybe you're on WhatsApp, you're just on social media, for them to understand that we are now using technology to do recording. The patient also does not have their own fears on where you are recording information, and a tablet, someone may imagine many other things. Of course, the other training that we took time on was on how to put entries, how to record the entries on the tablets, and of course, how to review once you put the entries, and how you can retrieve to just confirm that all the entries you've done are there. So the other thing is we developed an eHTS implementation, because at the training, we had so many questions, and we felt that all these questions can be answered through an SOP, so that some things are basic, you can do this, instead of people feeling like maybe I need to keep calling or looking for someone, or I stop the implementation until someone comes in. So there was just an SOP to offer guidance. Then we opened a WhatsApp platform to quickly address concerns, so that we are sure we are moving in the same page. So our implementation, we did a stepwise implementation. So we started with the high volume sites, and also our high volume sites had the highest volume of work. And once we were confident with eHTS implementation in our high volume sites, then we moved to the mid volume. So our training for the mid volume, we brought the providers to the high volume to learn on experiences, which was a bit different from when we were starting, when we just called them to maybe a hall to teach them. So the mid volume actually picked up faster, and even were quick to run with eHTS, even better than the high volumes. And now we used our mid volumes to be a trainer for our low volumes. So our linkage practices on eHTS is to integrate it in our mentorship structure. Like if you're going to review eHTS in a site, what should you look at? Like probably you can look at the records that have been done in the day, in the week, in the month. How do you do it? So we developed an SOP to guide in implementation and also in mentorship. Then of course, we kept encouraging the providers to own up the system, so that you don't first write the records on paper, then maybe in the evening you start putting the records on the tablet. So we tried, and at least right now we are doing a lot of real time as compared to when we started. So the other thing that we did was weekly, we compare the records that are on paper and in the electronic system, because we generate weekly reports on HTS implementation, the number of people tested and positive. So we're able to compare in a short period of time, so that you don't wait for a month and there are huge discrepancies and you may not be able to address them. So the other thing was we put up a system where a HTS provider is able to review the records that have been put in the day together with the record officer of that site. And then they flag out any clients that are missing, so that they can also be documented real time. Because we realize if you wait for it to go up to a week, then maybe 10 people are missing in the system. Then you have to review all the people who are put in the system to identify who are these 10 who are missing. And we felt it was more of a tedious than when they would do it real time during the day. Then of course, we supported a lot of support to the facilities, troubleshooting issues, especially technological hiccups, to actually build more confidence for the providers to use the system. And we compared, now the other mode of comparison that we use on a monthly basis is to compare what are the records on eHTS in these 40 sites versus what is the monthly HTS reports on all platforms, including the HIS, so that we are sure that we are moving in the same wavelength. So this is in line with what Kennedy Mutok had presented earlier. So our reporting rates are not, we are around, in some months we had hit 82%, some months we did better, others we didn't do well. So why we took this from a presentation that Palladium did, an email that Palladium did on reporting rates just around 2 weeks ago. So it helped us to also look at our site level data to look at what are the discrepancies. So for us to move probably to 100%, how many of these patients in each month are missing? And of course, we did it also at the facility level. So Wambua will present on the next slide. Wambua, are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah.
Hope you can hear me. So one of the key things was to get our data flow correct. Because actually, if you don't get your data flow correct, you'll end up with mix-ups. Because initially we had instances where you'd find the first counselor registers a client and the second counselor registers also the same client while doing the confirmatory testing. But one of the things that now we were able to bring out clearly was only the first counselor was the one who was supposed to register the client. So they were supposed to search for the client first to rule out they don't exist in the system. Then they go ahead and test the client, then they push their data. So the counselor or the person doing the confirmatory testing should only retrieve data, conduct the repeat testing, and then after that push the data. Then again, we made it clear that it was on the onus of the first counselor to make sure that the documentation, the linkage documentation is done. So once the client has been linked to care, the first counselor should be able to search for the client and document the linkage information. Next. Maybe Stella move to the next. Okay. So when it came to so we had some challenges. So one of which was duplication. So initially you'd find a client has been registered in HTS. When they go to the CCC during linkage, they're also registered. So one of the function, one of the things that we emphasized was at no point should a clinician at the CCC register a client. The only thing they should do is search for a client and enroll that client for the particular service they are taking. The other bit we emphasized was the real-time syncing of data for all positive clients. Because repeat testing usually happens at the CCC. So we emphasize that in cases whereby the network was not strong, that is the wireless network, during the time when the first counselor escorts the client to the CCC, they make sure that they have pushed their data. So after that, one of the things that we did to make sure that we got rid of the duplicates was by going and merging the clients that were duplicating the system, and also making sure that the eHTS implementation SOP kept on being updated, because these are living documents. Today you do it this way, but tomorrow you find there's a better way of doing it. So one of the other things that we grappled with was incomplete linkage form. So one of the things was coming up with the weekly reviews that is spearheaded by the data personnel and the HTS counselors, whereby they do a weekly comparison. Because there is also weekly tracking of performance, so that was looked vis-a-vis what has been captured on the eHTS, just to make sure that the two are in tandem. So the other bit was also historical linkage issues, and also poor handling of referral and linkage form data. So one of the things was first to institute a change on the HTS counselors to make sure that they capture all the information in totality, so as to make sure that we have all clients that have been tested positive and linked, we have their linkage information. Another thing maybe that is not on the slide, one of the things that we did to make sure that we also capture the linkage information, one of the things was to, if you note from what Stella presented on our data on linkage, we had a change as from January to date. So this was instituted by the fact that we moved, out of the 99 sites, we moved 73 of our sites to point of care. So this is a paperless point of care, whereby the clinician only uses the system to see the client. So this basically means now the clinician has to make sure that the data is there for them to proceed with the client. So if they find maybe that the data is missing, they get in touch with the HTS personnel. So at first you find it might because of the process is new, you might find there are delays here and there. But once it came to be a practice, it became a practice, and that's why you see kind of our linkage rates are they are moving high, and we expect that the linkage rates we'll have on the data warehouse should be the same with what we have on our program. So maybe one thing that we have also embraced to use is the patient key value. So this one, through the use of DWAPI, this is meant to help us uniquely identify our clients in our databases. So you find one of the problems that has existed was double registration. So one of the problems that existed was double registration of clients, leading to duplicates in the system. So one of the things that leads to clients being registered twice, as I said, one is maybe a client is registered in the HTS and goes to the CCC and they're registered again. Or they move from the HTS tester 1 to the second person performing the repeat test, they're registered again. During the time when we were, during the time where the legacy data was being migrated into the EMR, at the point where EMRs were introduced, you'd find instances where maybe most probably a client had been captured on a file more than once, so that data entered into the system as two records rather than one. So one of the things that we've done is we have emphasized on the importance of uniquely identifying our patients through their records. Because I know one of the things is through the use of UPN, unique patient number was meant to uniquely identify patients, but you find at times it hasn't been that consistent. So one of the things is for clients that really through the use of now the patient key value that it has given us as duplicate patients, we go through the patients confirming several indicators, maybe phone number, who is their treatment supporter, when were they born. And once we realize that this is truly, these are true duplicate clients, we have been able to merge the same. So I think that marks the end of our presentation. Yeah, so we'd like to acknowledge the Sierra County Health Management Team. They've been very supportive. I think one of the things is before we do anything, we usually do consultation. So that also we move together and so that we're able to support each other in implementing this. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the HTS providers who are offering the services, and also the program staff in CHS Shinda, also Palladium Group, who are the technological partner, and also CDC, who's our donor. Thank you.
Okay, asante sana all the presenters for sharing your experiences. It's very encouraging to note that the many partners are making use of the systems, and the systems are helping them to really track HIV testing services at their level. Before I transition to Jonathan, who will be managing the Q&A session, I really wanted to acknowledge, but beyond acknowledging, I think I had my own questions before we go to the rest. And I think the question that I have is from these best practice presenters who have done an excellent job, I've noted that for UCSF phases, and I'm really extracting this from the presentation that was made by Kennedy earlier, is that you had two sites that have never reported. It would be nice for you to let us know what you are doing to ensure 100% reporting. And then I also noted that your overall linkage from the data that was shared was about 77%, which is good, but it can be better. So maybe the question to the UCSF team is, does this reflect the true occurrence on the ground? And is there something that you can do to really move the linkage to the more than 80% based on what you normally report to us? Afia Ziwani, I noted that there were 4 sites that have never reported, so it's something to follow up, and your linkage rate was at 67%. CHS Naishi, you had actually 16 sites that have never reported. I hope that, and your linkage was around 34%. So again, it would be nice if you can respond to that and let us know when we can have a true representation of your linkage rate as is happening on the ground. LVCT steps, I think it's good that you've been reporting for all your sites, but the linkage was 63%, and CHS Shinda, the linkage was 64%. So I think those are areas that maybe we can get feedback, because for us, linkage is pretty key, and we really want to move to ensure that we have optimal linkage and linkage that reflects what you report in DETIM and the KHIS. I'll stop there and hand over to Jonathan, and then I'm seeing Jacob is already sharing a slide set, so Jonathan will guide on how to move on from there. Asante.
Thank you, Kimanga, and I think we can all clap for the presenters. The clap function is at the ribbon at the bottom. So we can take a quick round of Q&A before Jacob concludes with his final presentation, so let's just have a short break. Mutoka, if you had collected what was asked on the chat, we can quickly go through that. And if there are any other arising questions, we can also address the same. So, Mutoka.
Thank you, Doc. I have a few questions I think that had been pasted in the chat and haven't been addressed yet. So most of them have been addressed, so it's only a few. So I think the first one was to Koske, whether the provision of PKV feature can be done at facility level, and also the naming of the PKV as patient key value other than person key value. Maybe you can speak into that, especially considering that for an HTS client, we may not necessarily be a patient. Then to phases, someone wanted to know your experience and or challenge trying to upload data from the two standalone facilities. And also again to phases, your experience of pushing data to your central eHTS repository to the warehouse. To Afya Ziwani, there was a question about cost sharing with facilities and specifically which cost or infrastructure that the facility contributed. And lastly to LVCT, whether they're using both paper and eHTS or just eHTS platform for all their sites. So I think the others have been answered through the chat. Thank you, Doc.
Thanks. So I propose we take the question by order of presentations, and we can take UCSF, both the questions posted in the chat as well as what Kimanga has raised, and then thereafter the rest will follow. I'll mention on the issue of PKV whether we can by consensus call it person or patient. So UCSF, then Afia. Over.
Okay, thank you for the questions. So I'll try to remember and answer all of them. For the two sites, the reason why they've not reported is that, so for phases, the eHTS we are implementing for phases is a different customized version for the program. It's not the same one as the Palladium version. So we write our own custom queries. We recently updated the queries for eHTS because we had issues with the system, and we have not deployed those new queries to the two standalone sites, and that is why we've not reported from the two sites. The other thing was about linkage. We are still strengthening the recording of the linkage in our sites, that's one, but two, we have 22 EMR sites. We have Kenya EMR and we have 11 Kenya EMR sites and 11 OpenMRS sites. So if you look at care and treatment data, that's where the linkage is done. For the Kenya EMR sites, we've been able to upload that data consistently because the UAP is using the Kenya EMR queries. We've been writing custom queries for our OpenMRS sites to upload care and treatment data. We've had some challenges with that both from our queries and also from the system as well. So we have not completely uploaded that data consistently because of challenges with the query and the system, the DWAPI system, and that is why the linkage might be low. So once we have all our data from our OpenMRS sites in the data warehouse, then we should be able to have that linkage percentage go up. Regarding the upload of data to our central server, what happens in our 20 sites is that the users, when they're using the eHTS system, the data gets uploaded directly to the central server. And then when we are uploading to National Data Warehouse, we are able to pull data for all the 20 sites at once into the National Data Warehouse. So in those 20 sites, we don't have a localized server that the data goes to. The data goes directly into the central server immediately. So that's why we are able to quickly upload data for 20 sites to the National Data Warehouse. So I don't know if there's anything that I have missed from the questions that were asked.
So just a quick one from the UCSF team. The issues with the DWAPI, are they local? Are the scripts issue local or with a larger DWAPI system?
So one key thing that is important to note is that I think the DWAPI tool is typically been designed to upload data from one site. We have a customized version of DWAPI because especially because of the central database that the Palladium team created for us to allow us to upload data from multiple sites at once. So because of that, we've had back and forth to allow us to customize the system. We sometimes use the system, it has bugs, they fix that. The team has been very responsive. Every time we tell them we are trying to do this, not working, they've been trying to fix that. So our customized version is different from the ones that's typically used because the code allows us to upload data from multiple sites as opposed to just one site like the traditional DWAPI tool does. So that has also contributed a bit to the issue.
Thank you, CSF team. I think that's a good point to note because as we scale up, there'll be need to continuously load multiple sites. Afia?
Yeah.
Hello, hi. So for the question on why 4 sites have not submitted data, you'd find that we had said we support 27 sites, but we have a power backup for 20 of our sites. So if you look at our data properly, I think we have a consistent reporting rate for 20 sites, the one without the power issues. I think the main thing is we are having that power issue which is affecting the use of eHTS. I think it's a bit frustrating. And for us as Hifadhi at the moment, we are using the eHTS module in Kenya EMR. We have not yet implemented Muzima, which can help us out in scenarios of where we have power blackouts. So I think for those 4 sites, we are going to implement the Muzima to help us out in case their power blackouts, it can still use, then they can match when the power comes back on. I think that should be the issue we are having with those 4 sites. Then for the question on the linkage percentage you have on the data warehouse, no, that is not the actual linkage percentage. I think I got a higher linkage percentage. The issue here is, again, some sites submit incomplete data to the National Data Warehouse where they have tested more and linked more, but that is not captured in the EMR. So for that one, we are planning to do, monthly DQS where we compare the manual HTS register and the electronic HTS register just to make sure we have quality data in the EMR before we submit. So that's something we are doing sensitization on the facility staff to make sure they have all the data in before they submit. So that is not what we have on the ground. I think those are my 2 questions, unless there's something else.
There was one on the cost sharing. I am cognizant we are pressed for time. So again, I'd request we also keep our responses very concise. There was a question raised on the costs shared. Maybe you can just comment on that.
Cost shared between...
it was a
can you
cost
please
shared.
ask the question again, please?
I think the question was, as you roll out, there are costs shared between the program and the sites of the county. Was it Ziwani? Under my notes, it's under Ziwani. Did you mention that? And perhaps you can elucidate what are those costs that, maybe the facility or the county is able to meet as you roll out.
Oh, so as we're rolling out, I think all the costs were covered by the project, Ziwani. So there has not been any cost sharing as yet. So all costs covered by the project for the power backups and the installation and everything.
Hi, Jonathan. I think the question for cost sharing was for CHS Naishi.
Naishi, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for noting that, yes. I think it's erroneously appearing under Ziwani in my notes. Thank you for that. Naishi, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thanks, Jonathan. My name is Ruben Gumo. I will respond on behalf of Naishi. The first question is non-reporting sites. I think we have allowed 10 sites. Currently, we are implementing the 58 site in the eHTS, but now we are in the implementation process where some of the sites, the 10 remaining one, they are in the process of implementation, where we are still catching up on the healthcare workers so that they can be able to take up the eHTS. Some of the counselors, they are still familiarizing with the system, and moving forward, maybe in by the end of June or mid-June, we will be able to cover 100% of these 58 sites. But for the 45 sites so far, we have been able to cover very well. And I think the reporting rate will see it increasing starting maybe with the next upload in the data warehouse. Yes, there's that question for the linkage. The linkage that is there is not the true reflection for the site of the site covered by Naishi. There is, I believe this is a documentation errors as far as the eHTS and EMR documentation is concerned by the healthcare workers. And it's something that we are looking at so that we can ensure that once they record positive and they refer and the grant has been linked to the CCC, they can go back now and record the linkage as it is expected in the EMR. So we expect to have that should be like our CQI for moving forward, because the linkage for less than 80% linkage, I think is below the standard as is expected. For the cost sharing of the infrastructure, for the EMR to work well, we've learned that it's collaborative between partners and stakeholders, and our stakeholders being the MOH is the best. And we'll be working by the facilities. Once the CHS has been in forefront of maybe procurement of the infrastructure, but you see most of our facilities, they are offering like, they are procuring computers for their sites, and they are locating, like we have the Machakos County, where we have, they have done networking to their facility. And when we get into the facility, we relied on the infrastructure, networking infrastructure that has already done by the county. And also where we have maybe procured the networking and maybe computers, the facility comes in and chip in for labor costs. And also when it's come to the training, now the county has taken up, or the facility are taking up the training, because most of the training have been done on-job training. I think those were the main questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, the team from Naishi. Was there any other question for Naishi? Can't see on my notes. I think the issue of, linkage, what is in the data warehouse vis-a-vis what's in the site, will be a key standing and recurring issue, and should be one of the key quick wins for all the sites, having, eHTS, for us to make sure whatever we are uploading is in sync with what we have at the site. We can hear from LVCT Steps and Shinda very quickly before we move on to the next area. LVCT Steps.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. So just to respond on the first question that I had about whether we are using both the lab register, the paper with the eHTS. So currently among these three sites, that's using the lab register together with the eHTS module. Then again, to be able to say something about the linkages rate. So we own up this percentage because we realize that not all sites have aligned their data to be able to match what they have been reporting. So because of that, we have had plans, and I think currently these sites are working on the data alignment just to make things work for all these sites. So by the end of, we believe that by the end of the before the end of June, this data will be able to speak the same thing that we've been reporting. So maybe if there's any more additional questions, then I can be able to respond.
Thank you, LVCT. I think you're the first partner who have had say we own up to the data, it is ours, and we'll work on it. I think that's very promising, and we look forward to clean data subsequently. Very good. Shinda.
So I think ours was to respond to the low linkage rate. So we began, first we began implementation a while back, I think more than a year ago. So one of the things that we struggled with was the duplication, but so that ended up, we had more positives than what we actually had. We did find linkage was not documented in each and every of those. So we had been waiting for the merger feature in IQCare, of which I think it has been released about 2 months ago. So we are working on making sure that all the duplicate records have been merged, and hopefully by the end of the day, we'll be able to push the accurate data.
Thank you, Shinda. Unfortunately, in the interest of time, we might be forced to bring this session to a close. So maybe as Jacob loads the final presentation, I can tackle the issue of patient or person key value. I think just reflecting within HTS, just because you test positive does not mean it will be the only criteria for you to be a patient. Remember, you also receive counseling services. You might also receive prevention services based on your risk criteria. And as such, in my opinion, we should keep it as a patient key variable, because beyond you just testing positive, there are other services that you also receiving. And by definition, patient is somebody who's registered in a healthcare system and does receive services. So I believe having it as patient will be critical. And I think with the ongoing discussions to expand our HTS program to be a comprehensive prevention program, again, we'll also underscore the need for us to see what other services do we give our clients, both those who test positive and those who test negative. So I hope that answers that, and maybe we can transition to Jacob. Jacob, over to you.
Jonathan, Fred had his hand up. Maybe he can say something, and then Jacob.
Sorry, I did not check the hands. Yes, Fred, karibu.
So I think all presenters and to all the partners actually for this very good and exemplary work towards eHTS. Again, thank you. I know when we began this journey, it appeared that it was impossible, rather it had so many hurdles, but we can see the benefits. My question, or rather not a question to be responded, but something that we may work on together, is to see how, especially linkages that happen after data is submitted, uploaded into the National Data Warehouse, how can that be corrected? Because there are patients who take much longer to link, so that could be a contributor to the low linkage, but something we can work on with the partners together with Palladium. Over.
Thanks, Fred. I think very valid comments. Jacob?
Okay, thank you. I'll take just about 5 minutes or 7 for this. Mariri, you are controlling the slides, so we can move ahead. So just to first indicate that for proxy linkage does not work when it comes to EMRS and eHTS, because we actually rely on individual level linkage to estimate the aggregate linkage. So what this means is that at the EMR site, we just need to be aware about certain things. So the first one is that the main document that is relied on to indicate that a person has been linked is a linkage form. So it should be filled for all cases if you want the linkage to reflect in the report, but also in the data warehouse. And then additionally ensure that the person is enrolled to treatment. This is important because and during enrollment, additional information is captured about the person who is linked that gives us an idea about what that person was, the WHO stage, other relationships that that person has. that you may not really get from HTS. So it's important that you make sure that a linkage form is filled and that person is actually electronically enrolled in the EMR, and there's a record to it with a CCC number. The next thing about at the EMR site is to make sure that all the forms are for the same individual. You know, remember we normally do a registration. Just make sure that the registration form, the HTS form, the linkage form, and the CCC enrollment record belong to the same person. You'll see this in one of the slides in the future. So at the data warehouse then, there are additional things that help. One, once you meet the above criteria, then the second thing is that you must have uploaded your data to the warehouse. And we are really recommending that you upload both the eHTS docket and the treatment docket at the minimum. Because what that means is that if all the records belong to the same individuals, we can then connect their treatment record with their HTS record and create a continuum from the first 90 to the second 90, and therefore linkage in between. The PKVs really are support us whenever some data is missing. So uploading the PKV should be as important as uploading the other dockets, because it helps us whenever, for example, a linkage form is missing, we can be able to link the individual HTS record with the treatment record. So please make sure you upload that one as well. Now, a person can be recorded as enrolled in the EMR, but not, but in the data warehouse, they are unlinked, especially if the record, the HTS record that you generated in the eHTS application does not belong to the same person that was enrolled to treatment. You can test Jacob Odhiambo, but then during enrollment, you do not search for Jacob Odhiambo and enroll them to treatment. You actually create a new person and register. That is one of the biggest problems that cause low linkage in the warehouse, but high linkage on paper at the facility level. You can prevent this. Whenever a positive is identified, make sure they are synchronized to the EMR from the eHTS application. And during enrollment, search and enroll. Do not register and enroll. Whenever someone was tested using eHTS app and has been synced successfully to the EMR, never register that person. Please search for that person using the correct spelling and register them. For historical data this rule was not followed, then you need to search for the individuals, the two individuals who have the same name, the same details at HTS and at enrollment, and match them. What we do at the National Data Warehouse level with the PKV that you submit to us, we try to do this matching at the national level. But this is less efficient than trying to match them at the facility level, because you have access to a more detailed source of information that you can use for clerical review. Next. Now, if you have a linkage problem, then you just need to remember the rules that I think have been said in the presentation that we have gone through. Make sure that every time an individual is enrolled to care, you go back and update their linkage form with the correct CCC number that the person has been allocated in the app. Linkage form is usually available in the mobile application for testing, but enrollment is done in the EMR. So after the CCC number has been issued, it's important to copy that CCC number as it is and capture it in the linkage form in the mobile app. When the person is being enrolled, at enrollment, I want to just emphasize, search and enroll. Do not register and enroll persons tested using eHTS. That is a very important message as you're doing your supervision. You just make sure that you check. Make sure you search using the same spelling that was used as eHTS. You can sometimes find that you try searching for someone using an incorrect spelling, you don't find them, and then eventually someone is registered erroneously while they already exist in the system. You can also search using the eHTS number that was given to the person testing. The EMR has been designed to help you to simplify search and enroll by it gives you a list of possible matches, and you just need to go through that list to make sure that you do not re-register a person who is already existing in the system. At enrollment, just important, do not register a person who was tested using eHTS at enrollment because they already exist in the system. That feature is still only available when you are registering someone who has been linked from different facilities. Other things, if you do not sync, you will not find that record in the EMR. So it's important to make sure that the provider synchronizes their data, especially for positive, immediately they identify that positive person, so that when they reach the enrollment room, the person is already received by the EMR and can be searched for and found to be enrolled. There are reasons why records may not sync. I don't think I need to go through that. When you are not within wireless range, when you forget to sync, and if you try to synchronize a person who was registered using an identifier that already exists, the system will not accept and you will usually be alerted. The next one is just about, next slide. Yes, some providers remember to document on paper, but they do not enter the same linkage form within the eHTS. If you forgot, it means that it did not happen in eHTS and it will reflect in the reports. Also remember that within Kenya EMR and IQ Care, if you have entered a person in the EMR using one CCC number and make a mistake when you are transferring that CCC number to the linkage form, it means that you're dealing with two different individuals because CCC number is the identifier that is used by the EMR to identify individuals uniquely. So make sure that you match the CCC number issued at enrollment with the one that is captured in the linkage form in the mobile app. Next. This is just a sample, just illustrating this. We have a person who we are calling duplicate test client, age 32 years as patient 1. Patient 2, again, test duplicate client. If you look at the demographics, everything matches, including the date of birth, everything matches, the names match. But when you start looking at the OpenMRS ID under identifiers, you start seeing that the OpenMRS ID is different. That is your first warning that the second person was actually created afresh in the EMR when there was already a person in the system. And you can see that from the date when the person was created. Then when you now go down to the encounters, you'll notice that person 2 has an HTS encounter. Okay, you can see there are HTS encounters in person 2's record, but in person 1, they have enrollment information. Okay, it means that the person who was tested does not necessarily match with the person who was enrolled to treatment. So this is why we are saying, please do not register a new person at enrollment if an individual was tested using eHTS. Search for the person who was tested and enroll them. And in this particular case, where we have found that this person with HTS records and is different from the person who has the enrollment information, we can merge them. And when you merge them, what will eventually happen is that the HTS encounters will be added to the enrollment encounters and you'll have a complete record about this particular person. So it's very, very important to note that you can prevent, but you can also correct. Next. Yes, this is just a screen in Kenya EMR that is showing you whenever you try to register a person in Kenya EMR, it will always give you on the left-hand side a list of individuals who are matching. And when you type the name Mary, everyone named Mary will appear. If you type the second name again and you navigate to outside of that field, you will find everyone called Mary Atieno or Mary Owino will appear. So please always encourage your staff to review that list to make sure that the person they are trying to register does not exist. And you can do this using the names, the ID number if it's available, the gender, the date of birth, and basically eyeball the records to make sure and interrogate the patient if they are before you in case they have already been done. A special mention for retrospective data entry sites. Okay, a special mention for retrospective data entry sites. Remember that HTS in most cases currently is being done point of care and enrollment is being done retrospectively. It means that you need to talk to the person who is responsible for registering the person in the EMR, whether it is a provider at the CCC or a data clerk who is doing retrospective data entry, to always search for that person before they register that person. I think this should be the last slide. Go ahead, Mariri. This is just to show the OpenMRS ID are different for these two people, yet they share the same name and everything else about them. Go ahead, next slide. Yes, so the final slide is just a summary. Just remember that if you have no garbage in the EMR, you will not have garbage in the National Data Warehouse. So make sure you capture linkage records accurately on both eHTS and paper. Ensure that the HTS, the CCC number, the CCC enrollment record and the HTS belong to the same person, and that the CCC number issued at enrollment is exactly the same as you enter in the linkage form in the HTS application. Within the warehouse, remember that the EMR is the main system that sends data to the National Data Warehouse. So it has to have the accurate record for you to get accurate records in the National Data Warehouse. If you do not fill any record, either HTS linkage form or enrollment, it will not show up in the National Data Warehouse. If you do not upload any of the three dockets, HTS, EKV, and treatment, it will not show. So always make sure you upload all the dockets, because at individual level analysis, which is what the agencies and the Ministry of Health require, they want to analyze at individual, the whole continuum of care, from diagnosis to outcomes for individuals who are tested. So that basically is a summary of the issues you need to pay attention to, so that we can be able to have improved linkage and that matches with PEPA. This is just acknowledging all the partners and the agencies who have been working with us through from the first day when the first facility got an eHTS application developed and rolled out. Thank you. Back to Jonathan.
Thank you, Jacob. I think your presentation was very, very, very important, especially in reconciling the gaps we are seeing between the very good work being done at the facility and the data we're seeing in the data warehouse. And I hope the slides will be shared. And subsequently, as we do TA, we shall re-emphasize on the key messages around, if we don't sync our data, we will sync and drown. If we have garbage into the system, it's garbage out. And I think also more importantly, working with our treatment colleagues to ensure patients registered under HTS, when they're being enrolled, we search into the pre-existing database. So thank you very much, Jacob. And at this point, I wish to hand over back to Kimanga so that we can begin closing. Again, apologies, we've run over time, but I think it was for a worthy cause. Over, Kimanga.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, all the presenters. This was really excellent. My take-home message, especially for the question that I asked the specific partners, and a number of them respond their data, is that if you ensure that the linkage form is completed and the client has a CCC number, that is the definition of linkage. Now, that is what is going to be used to compute your linkage at step 1. The advantage with an EMR is that you are able to go to step 2, where you can follow this person up and find out were they enrolled into the actual CCC. So you can actually use the enrollment details of the CCC to be able to confirm that they actually linked. But the definition of linkage is having a CCC number in the linkage form, which is very much in line with what we are using for HTS definition. So when you do your part, the systems will also do their part, and it should reflect what you have. And if it's not, then please point it out so that it can be rectified as we move on. Thanks a lot, Jacob, for that very excellent summary of everything that has been done. At this juncture, I really want to go to the tail end of this presentation and this session actually. And to begin with, I would like to give an opportunity to the agencies to really give their closing remarks, and thereafter the government, and the government begins with the county and then NASCOP in that order. So for the agencies, do we have somebody from DOD who can say something? That's alphabetically. DOD, Samson, thank you.
Manango Samson from DOD, just to thank the team for the great work and continued collaboration. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. I was trying to choose something. Okay, USID. I saw Leonard Saw joining on the team. Oh. They may have dropped along the line.
Leonard is still on.
Yeah.
Please unmute. I know you're having lunch, but please unmute and say something. Okay. Okay, then we can have CDC, and then we'll try again for USID.
For CDC, again, to thank you, to thank all the presenters, the partners, of course, across all agencies as well, for the good work they've input. I think this will be an exciting journey, and the fruits will be there once we go full circle. We've just checked, and we are informed we have over 1,200 EMRs across the country. And looking at our eHTS footprint, we are only at just shy of 300. So therefore, if you're only able to match, EMR, for each EMR to have an eHTS, corresponding platform, I think we'll be on our way to making sure all our data is uploaded, and we shall begin to reap the full benefits of, having our data, patient level data, real time, and being able to make sure we have no duplicates and able to see good linkages. I know also beyond, linkage, we also now beginning the conversation around recency. And again, with a proper EMR, platform, we shall be able to unleash the full potential of recency testing, as well as also the full, discussion around case-based surveillance. So for me, this is a very exciting journey, and I'm glad to see, Jacob and his team are, really putting in, the hours, and they're able to support us in terms of technology. And for the partners who are currently writing their continuation applications, at the bare minimum, ensure you are targeting all your EMR sites to have, corresponding eHTS, platform. So be on the lookout for that and work with your activity managers to ensure you're beginning to move towards that goal. So thank you all, and thank you very much. Over.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan, and we really appreciate the collaboration. Leonard, I'm sure you are done swallowing. USID. Jamaa aliingia mkutano mwingine. Okay. To that point, then I wish to hand over to the county representative, and Mary, you can advise me who is representing the county.
Yes, Dr. Kemanga, I'm here.
Oh, karibu sana, please.
Yeah, thank you. So this is David Gitau, Kaskwamuranga, representing the Cascos family and also the county government. So for us, it's really to thank everyone for the successful stakeholders forum that we've had. It was a great learning point for all of us, and want to believe probably if you actually be holding this kind of meetings more oftenly, then probably improve especially our reporting in the national data warehouse. Probably I would like to request on behalf of the counties is that we can probably have like a sensitization meeting for the county folks, especially the customers, so that it can be updated on the national data warehouse. Actually, the data in the national data warehouse, but apparently, in terms of Palladium, can actually plan for that kind of sensitization. Thank you very much. Back to you, Kemanga.
David, much appreciated, and we know that's where the action is, and we really look forward to collaborating to make this a realistic. Your request to have sensitization for the Cascos has been taken positively, and I'm sure Palladium will arrange for that. At this juncture, I wish to hand over to my overall boss who started this journey, Mary Mugambi. I know we've had a few breakfast meetings on the eHTS dashboards and many other things. So we are glad to be where we are because of her exceptional leadership. And I'm sure she will guide us on how to move on next. Mary, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Kimanga, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for just being patient and paying attention to this journey. As Dr. Kimanga says, yes, we began it small, but we hope that we are going to scale up to majority of the sites, and we have just begun. The journey is not so bad. We hope to do better. Even now, as we have the COVID issues, we hope to scale up despite of all this. So I think we have come to the end of this meeting. We hope to have many more. We hope to have also the EMR for the PrEP program as well. So even if we have started now, it means we have just started with the eHTS. But even as we scale up eHTS, how do we bring in now the PrEP component, the PMTC ANC module, and all that? So for us at NASCOP is just to say thank you to everyone for participating. And asante sana. Kimanga, I don't think there was anything much that we had on our side. I think I'll hand it over to Jacob.
You need to officially close.
Actually, I'm the host of this meeting. I'll log out everyone, but asanteni sana. This meeting is officially closed. And sorry, Kimanga, before we close, we have our COE meeting tomorrow. You are all welcome. We have already done the invitations. I hope you have gotten them. And part of what we are going to be discussing is this, the EMR. But since you have attended this, you had most of the issues on the EMR. We also have a lot on the agenda that you can participate in tomorrow between 9 and 12. Welcome. So this meeting is officially closed. Asanteni.
Thank you.